Hello everyone, my name is Arundhati Yamsani, and in this session I'm going to introduce you to some nice expressions to interrupt someone politely in a conversation. Okay, so there are many different ways, but people often find it very uncomfortable to cut short in a conversation. Okay, and there's always a situation that arises, whether it is at business, work, or school, even in social situations where you have to interrupt for several reasons. Sometimes you might have to end the conversation for the want of time, or you want to add something, or you want to disagree with someone. All these reasons make you politely interrupt someone, right? So you can't afford to be rude to someone when you're interrupting. So we have to learn some phrases which are of great value, especially in discussions, conversations. And these days we see a lot of students going for campus placements interviews, of which group discussion is an important part. So this is where polite interruptions are really of great value. Okay, so let's look at some examples. I've actually tried to make up sentences based on those expressions so you get an idea, but you can use these phrases in combination with any sentence that you have in mind. Okay, so try working out different combinations, but more importantly, try using it at the earliest opportunity that you have. Okay, so let's move on, okay, and start without any delay. So the first one is, I'm sorry to barge in. Okay, when you suddenly interrupt someone, okay, these people are talking in a room and you suddenly open the door and you don't want to sound very abrupt, okay, you don't want to sound very rude and intrusive, so you say, I'm sorry to barge in, but I have some urgent message for you. Okay, so that appropriately grabs the attention, right? The next one is, I'm sorry to cut this short for the want of time. We'll have to continue this sometime later. Okay, that's very clear. Next one, I couldn't help overhearing you. This is when you hear other people conversing and you join the conversation. Okay, when you're not a part of it, but you want to join that and you want to add something to that conversation. Okay, so I couldn't help overhearing you, and I must say that your idea sounds good. Okay, so it can be anything. So this is just for an example. Right, let's look at the next one. Sorry for the interruption, but would it be better if we assigned these jobs to different teams instead of one? Okay, so very often we come across a situation at work where all the work is assigned to one single team instead of giving to many people. So you feel the need to make this clear to the people who are actually assigning the work. So when they say that, you could say, sorry for the interruption, and then you could add your suggestion. Okay, next one. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but may I interrupt quickly? Okay, so can you see how formal this is? It's very polite and formal, and for that matter, all the expressions here on this list are formal, people. Okay, so keep that in mind and try to use them at workplace as often as you can. Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but may I interrupt quickly? I think we should also consider the technical difficulties involved. Okay, so when you're trying to give an alternative opinion, or when you're trying to talk about the downside of something, you use this phrase saying, I don't mean to be rude. Okay, and there is also another phrase that with all due respect, I beg to differ. Okay, that also is there, but that is for disagreeing strictly. You can't use that for interrupting. Okay, so here, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but may I interrupt quickly? And then you say your sentence. Next one. Excuse me, may I jump in here? Okay, so when you suddenly want to add something, okay, so for example, we had a similar plan last year, but unfortunately it could not attract more customers for us. Okay, so this is something important to move on, right? So you're adding an opinion here, okay, or observation. Let's go to the next one. Sorry, I don't mean to poke my nose into. Okay, which means you don't want to sound very intrusive. You don't want to sound as if you're intervening without permission. Okay, so you want to say something that is important. So you say, sorry, I don't mean to poke my nose into, but wouldn't it be better if we take everyone's opinion on this before making a decision? Okay, so if you think that that's quite lopsided or one-sided, and you think that there is a possibility that people might disagree with that, you could add suggestions like this. You could ask them. Okay, and next one is, excuse me, can I add something here or something there? Can I add something there? We also need to compare this with the figures for last year's profits, for example. Okay, so when you want to add information, very often when you don't interrupt, the flow of interview continues, and the discussion or meeting continues, and you won't have an opportunity to raise that point later. So it's very much important to stop there and then. Okay, so these are and sometimes people lack these expressions. They are not aware of these expressions, and they want to say, and they're quite reticent, and that idea is left untold, unsaid. Okay, so for that reason, you should have these phrases, people, that will help your communication rolling. Okay, I hate to interrupt, but I'm sorry, we are running out of time and need to end the meeting. So this is when you want to conclude something because you're running short of time, and sometimes you lose the track of time when you're speaking, especially when there's too many speakers. Okay, so in that case, someone has to remind. So this is a polite way of reminding, and you stop them there and you say, I hate to interrupt, but I'm sorry, we are running out of time and need to end the meeting now. Okay, let's move to the next one. Do you mind if I come in here? Come in here means intervene, or you want to kind of stop that there. Okay, and you want to say something. Okay, do you mind if I come in here? Interrupt. Let's give this some thought before we finalize the deal. Okay, so you're actually suggesting something, saying that, let's not decide immediately, let's not jump to conclusions. Okay, so you're also giving suggestion there. So do you mind if I come in here? Let's give this some thought before we finalize the deal. The manager might like your idea, and you might think about it at a later time. Okay, now next one. Before we move on, I'd like to say something. We need Sylvia to work extra hours to keep on top of our daily target. Okay, let me repeat that. Before we move on, I'd like to say something. We need Sylvia to work extra hours to keep on top of our daily target. Okay, so if you want the daily targets to be met, you want one person in the department who deals with that particular aspect to work extra hours, okay, to reach that target. Okay, so that is, before we move on. So you have so many different segments in a meeting. So at the end of one segment, you could say this before we move to the next one. Okay, next one. Can I just stop you there for a second? Okay, this might sound a little bit rude if you're not familiar with the person. Okay, so you could say, can I please stop you there for a second, if you want to sound extra polite. Okay, so can I just stop you there for a second? We need to get going in half an hour, otherwise we'd miss the train. So you could say this to a familiar colleague, okay, a friendly colleague at work, okay, not to a stranger. Next one. Can I just mention something? I assume we will have less work pressure if we train everyone to perform these tasks. Okay, so this is just an example sentence, people. So here you're trying to offer a suggestion. Can I just mention something? And then you say your opinion. Okay, I assume we'll have less work pressure if we train everyone to perform this task. Okay, next one. May I add something? Or before we move on, can I add something? We need to make sure we obtain a customs clearance to avoid trouble in the future. Okay, so this is an important point for people to note in the meeting, maybe. Okay, so you are trying to add something important to that. So that's one more. And the last one is, yes, that sounds good, but I doubt if that can benefit the consumers in any way. Okay, so you're giving an alternative opinion, but look at how politely you're disagreeing. First you said, that sounds good. Okay, so this is something called concessional argument. So you agree with the other person's opinion, but you also have an alternative opinion to put forward. Okay, so you don't completely disagree, but you have an alternative opinion. Okay, So these are some polite ways to interrupt people. I hope you find them useful. If you have anything to say, always leave it in the comments box.